Hey everybody, welcome into Watch Me Wednesday, episode number 57. Today we are going to do applique. So, and I forgot to turn off my do not disturb. So, hopefully we don't get any phone calls or text messages. Hey Lisa, how are you? Happy Thanksgiving. Hey Lisa, another Lisa, Lisa and Lisa. Hi guys. So, today we're going to talk about laser cut appliques and decorative stitching. So I wanted to go over a few things with you. I'll try not to make too much of a long episode today because I know you all have Thanksgiving things to tend to, as do I. I've been cooking all morning, believe it or not, which I love to do. So I hope you all are getting your Thanksgiving things ready. Anyway, I know a lot of you are not just quilters, but you do decorative things as well as embroidery, you sew clothing, some of you knit, I'm sure. But I wanted to talk about a few things with you. So I have a wonderful machine. I have a 980Q Applique, and it is fabulous, and it's got a ton of decorative stitches on it. And what I did, and this is a little thing that I like to do that is fabulous. So if you find a decorative stitch that you like, stitch it out. Thanks, Sue. I made cranberry sauce this morning. Sue saw me post it. Anyway, this is what I like to do. If you see a decorative stitch on your machine, stitch it out. And if you see at the top here, my machine actually tells you the stitch number. So I write the stitch number at the top. And then if you look next to it, what I wrote here is the width, so it's an 8 width, and then that's a 7 length. So it helps you kind of remember which stitch you liked best or which stitch you're going to use on your project and what you had set it at before you went ahead and stitched your project out. So it's really helpful to do this before you go ahead and stitch your project. I mean, there are some stitches, if you look real close at this, I did do double layer here, but if you look real close at this particular stitch probably could use a little stabilizer behind it because you could see how the fabric kind of got bunched up a little bit. So I hope that's kind of helpful to you. But it's a great reference tool for you to use when you are doing your decorative stitches on your machine. The other thing that you're going to need to know when you are doing decorative stitching on your applique. Hey Cheryl, how are you? By the way, if you want to hit the share button to share the video with anybody whom you might think might like to watch how we're going to do the applique stitches, that'd be awesome. So the other thing that you're going to need, now my designer Applique, well, I'm sorry, my Applique 980Q, my designer Applique sitting across from me, the difference between the two is one has embroidery and this one does not. Anyway, how I like to set up my machine is when I'm doing decorative stitching, I love to use colors of thread that match or blend or contrast. So depending on what I'm doing, you're going to want to choose those threads. So what I have here, I'm going to show you. I have a variety of, I love my Aurifil threads, and I have a variety of threads here now. This one is a 40 weight because it's got a green cone, and this one is got an orange cone, so it's 50 weight. So depending on what you're looking for, so if you could see this probably better. So this is a 50 weight, I'm sorry, 40 weight, and this is a 50 weight thread. So depending on what you're, if you're looking for something that's going to be a little thinner and not going to show as much, you might want a 50 weight. If you want something that's going to show a little more, and actually these were all done with the 40 weight thread, so it's a little heavier, denser, but it's nice to have a great variety of colors. This one's actually a little monochromatic, variegated. If you can kind of see, it's a little green with a little white in there. So have a good selection of threads around, and they are all up. Quilt Inspector number 1 is here to visit, so he's probably going to walk in on. He's right here. He's looking at my thread that's in my machine right now, and I can't have him at that. But he's going to lay on my sample, I think. He's going to sit here, and you're going to see him in a minute. Here, look. There he is. There he is. He's looking right at my thread. Quilt inspector number 1. That's a no-no. It's a no-no. Anyway, so hey Becky, hey Sonia. So the other thing you're going to want to know too, if you got to get familiar with your machine. I use actually lighter weight thread in my bobbin. It's about a 50 or 60 weight in the bobbin when I'm doing it, and I use white. You can use the same thread if you want. I don't, just because I have more of that. No, quilt inspector number 1, lay down, come on. So when you choose your particular pattern or decorative stitch, and you've marked it on your fabric, which you're going to use, you could also go ahead and mark which foot belongs to it. Now my machine does tell me when I switch it to whatever decorative stitch I'm using. Hey Elizabeth, how are you? Whatever decorative stitch I'm using, it does tell me which foot to use. So this is my S foot, and I was doing, I'll show you, this little cool stitch down here had used my S foot. And then most of the decorative stitches that I chose on here either use my A foot or my B foot, which I have on my machine right now. So you want to make sure that you're using the correct foot for the correct stitch. The other thing you want to do is when you're doing decorative stitching, you want to make sure you have your zigzag throat plate in your machine, and I'll show you that in a second when I turn the camera down so you can see what I'm stitching as well. So you're going to want that decorative or the zigzag throat plate, not the single needle throat plate, because if you have the single needle throat plate in your machine, you're not going to be able to do the decorative stitches because they zig and they zag. And if your machine isn't as smart as this one, and some are super smart and they'll tell you, no, you can't do that because you have the single hole throat plate in. If you don't, what's going to happen is it's going to zig and your needle's going to go down and it's going to break, and that's not going to be good. It's just not going to be a good thing. So make sure you have the correct throat plate on there. Okay, now I want to talk a little bit about what I'm going to demo on. So when I was at Quilt Market, a lot of you saw my post from Quilt Market. One of my new patterns called Pretty Kitty, it's red. This is the Appliqué, Laser Cut Applique sheet that I have. So you can actually get the laser cuts to do the pattern, but the pattern is the same laser cut. And I'll put the, it's called Pretty Kitty, but I'll put the links above me when I'm done. But this is the laser cut kit, so it gives you the laser cut pieces. It gives you the flowers, 2 of the flowers that are on the pattern, and it gives you that whole entire kitty cat as well. So when I was at Quilt Market, I was demoing how to use the laser cuts. And for those of you who don't do needle turn applique and you want to do just a raw edge, this is a great way to do it. Thank you, Elizabeth, for all the love. I appreciate it. So I was showing this at Market. So this is one of the flowers. I did a little take and teach on how to get your laser cuts on the background and then start to stitch. So what I like to do, I gave them, each of my students, they each got a little kit that have in it all the components to do one flower, okay? But when you purchase the laser cut kit from me, you get the components for both the flowers and the cat. You get all of that. And the word CAT, that's piece, so you're not appliquing that. So then they get these little kits, and basically I'm going to turn the camera down so you can kind of see what I'm going to do here. Hi Kyra, how are you? Happy Thanksgiving. So I'm turning the camera down, and my quilt inspector, he's being very good next to me right now. He's being very good. So in the little kit, I gave everybody a background fabric, and in this one, it happens to be white. And what I would do is I would press this fabric first, but then you're going to take the laser cut pieces and lay them out. So this has a backing on it, and you're going to peel that paper backing off. I typically don't iron it right onto the fabric first. I use an applique pressing sheet. So what I basically do is I'm going to take my laser cut pieces and I'm going to get them the way I want them on here. And that includes, this is how they come when you get the laser cuts. They come like this and you have to snip them apart. This is the stem. There's 2 stems in here because there's enough to make 2 flowers. And there's leaves. You snip them off of there and peel off the backing. And then there's the other 2 sets of leaves. But what I do is I take the backings off of all these, lay it on an applique pressing sheet, okay? And then I fuse the entire flower together first the way I want it. Then I peel it off of the applique pressing sheet, and then I will go ahead and fuse it to my background fabric. Once it is fused to the background fabric, this is what you have, okay? So you get your piece. So this was all pre-fused together on an applique pressing sheet. Then I just peel it off, put it on here, and hit it with an iron again. And now it's on here ready for me to go ahead and applique. Now you can see on this one I started some applique stitches. I did a buttonhole stitch here, or a blanket stitch, and then I did this pretty little stitch here. And I've got my machine set up right now to do a buttonhole stitch around the yellow, and I am going to use yellow thread. So I want you to see what I'm going to do on this. So I'm going to bring the camera over here, and you're going to see quilt inspector number 1 over here. He is going to be inspecting. See him? See him right there? He is going to be watching me sew. And I hope that you're going to get a good enough view of the needle here. What I like to do when I have my stitch ready, I've set this at, my stitch length is at 3.0 and my width is also at 3.0. What I like to do is, and if you wanted to do it again, let's see, where did I put that? Unless quilt inspector number 1, he's laying on it. Let me just get that out from underneath you, buddy. Okay, so you can go ahead and do a test stitch, and I typically count my stitches. So I count, so it's going to go so much forward. It does a little fixed stitch. It's going to go in, down, and over. So it's 1, 2, and if you go slow, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I count, so I know exactly what that count is. So when I'm coming around the corner, I know to turn, okay? And then I'm just going to go ahead and cut this, and now I know what my stitch looks like. So that's what my stitch is going to look like. I had already pre-tested this, so you can see what the stitch is going to look like. Let me hold it up there a little bit so you can kind of see what that's going to look like. Now I'm going to go ahead, and what I want to do, I always put my I always put it in needle down position, because then I can pivot on my machine, and I'm not in the right spot, so I'm going to move it because I want it to right on that edge. I want my needle down in, and now I'm right on the edge of that, the flower, the center piece of that flower. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start, and I'm going to go slow. And on this machine, when your needle is down and in, the presser foot lifts up. I'll show you. See how it lifts up so I can pivot if I need to? And that happens when you're in the needle down function. So some machines have that, some machines don't. And I know my Vikings all have that, which I love. It's a great functionality. Now, I like to, when I'm doing applique, I like to go fairly at a slow pace, because I feel like, you know, it's a marathon, it's not a sprint, because I like to get my stitches fairly perfect. Now I know that they're not all going to be perfect, but that's okay, and that's why you practice. And see how I stopped in there, and I can just turn it ever so much, because this is a little bit tighter curve than that outside pink flower. So you're going to need to turn a little more often and pivot so you keep it on that outside line. And I'm basically just following that outside line, taking my time. Now, what I encourage all my students to do is, I mean, the buttonhole or the blanket stitch is definitely a popular stitch to do because it's pretty and it serves its function. But if you see another stitch that you like, give it a go and try it. Now, I did post when I was at Quilt Market some of my students what they decided to give a try, and they looked super duper nice. But I will caution you again that if you use like a denser stitch, you might want to put a little stabilizer behind it, because what is in the laser cuts, the fusible that's in here, is very, very lightweight. So you're not going to get a lot of stability behind it because it's a very lightweight fusible, which I prefer because then it gives the quilt a nice feel and drape when you are done with the applique on the quilt. So I'm going to stop here and I'm going to cut that. It ties it off for me, and then I can just restart there. But I'm going to show you, so if you can see up close, let's see. Can you see that stitch? The stitch there? How nice it came out if you just take your time and go along. So let me turn the camera back around so you can say hi to, there's quilt inspector number 1. He's scrutinizing my stitches for sure. It's very tough working with him. He's very, very detail oriented. So I'm going to turn the camera back up towards me. There I am. He is a good boy, Louise. So basically that's how you're going to do laser cuts. So super simple. So if you've been looking at laser cuts and you have been wanting to give them a try, it's great to do. I do have, I think, 1 or 2 available, still available on my website. And yes, Betsy, generally, I mirror image the stitch so that I can sew the applique fabric to the left. So yes, that's a good point. So most machines have a mirror image function, and actually, Betsy, that's what I did when I set this up. My machine also has a mirror image, so depending on which side you want to sew from, so if you're sewing from one side or from the other, you'll want to flip it and mirror image it, and that's exactly what I did on mine. And you can also flip it. Mine, you can also flip up or down, so if you want the stitch to go, if like on this particular stitch here, the purple one, you can have it go one direction or the other, so it can either go up or down, depending on what you're stitching. So you can do lots of things with your machine, so check it out. Check out your machine. If you haven't been using those decorative stitches, go ahead and use them. And even just do a test little sample like this, just to kind of get a feel for what they are. And you can see on each one where I wanted to see, I adjusted the length and the width a little bit, and I said down here this is a 5 width and a 5.5 length, and up here it is a 3.5 width and a 7 length. So it's just subtle difference in there, but you can see it. So it's a nice way to do that. So play with your machines a little bit and kind of get used to those applique or decorative stitches. And you can use them not just on applique, but you can use it on so many other things. If you wanted to try out the applique, definitely do it. Laser cuts are a great way to go. It takes all the work out of having to cut the fabric yourself. Now, I will tell you that in my pattern, Pretty Kitty, in the pattern itself, so remember, this is the applique packet. The pattern is separate from it. So in the pattern, I do give you the templates to use to cut your own. So if you don't want to use my Feline Fine fabric, you do have those templates in the pattern so that you can use any fabric you want to use. So you do have that flexibility. The only difference there is you're going to have to take the templates and cut your own fabric and put your own fusible on it. Whereas this comes pre-cut, pre-fused for you, which makes it a little bit easier, makes the job a little bit smoother. So have fun with it. Give it a try if you haven't tried it before. Like I said, I think I have 1 or 2 left, and I will be getting more in when the fabric comes in January. So even if there's only 1 or 2 in stock now, and if you want it, you can go ahead and get it. But definitely click the notify me button so we know that you want it. Kyra's asking, do you have SVG files available on your site for folks that have cutters? No, I don't. I'm sorry, Kyra, I do not have that. I'm wondering though if you can use the templates in my pattern and scan them into your cutter. I'm not real familiar with them, so I don't know how those cutters work. So yeah, sorry, Auntie Vic, I don't have them, and I'm not really quite sure how they work. So I have never really used a cutter. But if you could scan in the templates that I provide in the pattern, then you'd still be able to use it. Anyway, but that's something to keep in the back of my head for future use. So thanks for bringing that up. So Kyra's saying, yes, for those of us with the scan and cut, we can do that. So you can scan the templates in. So perfect. And these are nice size. And they're on nice quality paper. So if you have the scan and cut, like Kyra's saying, you have the ability to go ahead and do that on those cutters. So you don't have to go ahead and hand cut your fabric. So another option, which is great. This is a great way. I love doing this because I learn from you guys too. That is one thing I don't have experience in, is the cutters, the scan and cut. So that's great. Thanks for giving that information, Kyra. I appreciate it. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed today, and we'll probably do a little more applique and decorative stitching in the future as well. I want to wish you all a very happy Thanksgiving. If you guys have questions about what I talked about today, please put them in the comments. I will answer them, and I will put above me when I'm done, I will put the links to the pattern and to the applique laser, laser cut applique sheets. If they sell out, just hit the notify me button so I know that you want them when they're ready at the end of January. So thank you, everybody. Happy Thanksgiving for those of you here in the USA. I appreciate you all dropping in, and I'm signing off for the day because I'm going to cook a little more. I'm gonna make a pie and an ice cream cake. I can't say too much because I don't know who else is watching. And I'm gonna make a spinach and feta pie and some other good stuff. So I'll be posting pictures of my Thanksgiving meal, so you get to see them. And maybe I'll even share some recipes. Cranberry sauce is already in the fridge. I made it already. Anyway, take care. I'll see you guys next week. Have a great weekend and happy quilting. Bye-bye.